This is the build Keane has been using in patch 9.15 to get multiple accounts into Challenger and is still currently climbing the leaderboards. My name is JinxJK, a Challenger player myself, and in this video I'm going to show you how to play this build with transitions from the early to mid to the late game. But first, here's a quick piano intro. The idea behind this build is to use the Twisted Fate as a mana booster for your other units so that they can ult very quick in these fights. Now, whether he pulls a blue card or a red card, both are great as the blue allows quicker mana gain to your other units and the red is just really great AoE damage alongside with the Sork buff that you get from the Morgana, Twisted Fate, and Lulu. Now the ideal itemization for this build is focusing the items on Keane and Twisted Fate, and those being Double Static Shiv and Luden's Echo on the Twisted Fate, and Morellonomicon, Guardian Angel, and the Ionic Spark on the Keane. Now, if you do ever get these triple mana items on the Twisted Fate, on that very first auto, he's going to be pulling a card to get things going right away. Before we get into the early game, we need to talk about item priority and when you want to level. Now, the leveling blueprint has not changed since the last patch. You're still leveling on 2-1, 2-4, and 3-1. I go in detail about this on my previous video, so go check that out really quick, watch this section on leveling, and I'll see you right back. Now, as for items, the two main items you want to prioritize on that very first carousel is Static Shiv and GA. If you're really unlucky, then you can go for Ionic Spark components. So in order, you want to prioritize Recurve Bow, BF Sword, Tear, and Chain Vest. Now you're saying, Jinxed, why are you prioritizing? If Static Shiv is the best item, why are you going Recurve Bow and then BF Sword? Why not Recurve Bow and Tear and then BF Sword and Chest? Well, here's the thing. Say you don't grab the Recurve Bow and you prioritize the Tear, right? So the Recurve Bows get taken, so you grab the Tear, you're thinking, hey, that's second best, that's the second component to the Static Shiv. What about when that next carousel comes along and you happen to be in second place, meaning you're picking last on the carousel? There's most likely not going to be any Recurve Bows left. So in that case, what you do is you try to get the higher priority items, Recurve Bow, BF Sword. So when that next carousel comes along, if you're in first place, it's more likely that you'll be able to grab a Chain Vest and a Tear from that carousel. There have been many times where I see everyone going for the Recurve Bow. I'm like, you know what? You guys have it. I'm going to grab myself the BF Sword. I'm going to grab myself the GA, and then I'm going to cruise my way to the mid game. So let's talk about the early game. How are we going to get to this build? The main things I like using right now, or the strongest things I should say, is first off Noble Knights. So you want to have Garen, Darius, ideally as your two knights, and then the best nobles would be Fiora and Lucian. Now of course, if you can't get these three, you can use the Vayne to sub out one of the other units. So in the early game, you want to use Noble Knights. Another good variation that I like, if you happen to get Vayne and a second Ranger, Ashe or Varus, then you can do a 2-Knight, 2-Ranger opener, something like this. And this is going to be in your first PvP round. You want to focus, either on a Noble Knight opener or a Knight Ranger opener. And the other one that I do actually have found successful myself is an Assassin opener with just a single knight or any unit to go along with it, because sometimes you do end up getting a Pike and a Zed early, which you can utilize. So you're using Kha'Zix, Pike, and Zed. So those are the three best openers: Noble Knight, Knight Ranger, or an Assassin variant with any unit here. to bring the people in, you know, get them out of the box so that the assassins can jump on the back line. Now, there will be games where you just don't get the knights, right? You don't get the nobles, you're not getting the assassins either. What can you do? Don't panic. The next best units you can use as your beefy front line is the Brahm and the Shen. So if you can get any one of these units, you can use them until you get your 2 knight buff online. And another good synergy that you can use in the early game if you get them upgraded is Warwick Nidalee. So if you get the knights with it, that's again amazing. 2 knights, 2 wild, great. Warwick is a little bit of beef, Nidalee's a little bit of damage. If you're not finding the knight, use the Brahm, use the Shen until you get that 2 knight synergy. You happen to come along the Poppy. There we go. Now you have your knight buff online to allow you to transition into the mid game. So now let's talk about the mid game and how you're going to fit these pieces in. At this point, you're probably level 5, level 6, and the first synergy you want to take out is the nobles. So the first unit that will come off is Fiora, and the next is Lucian. So you are collecting your key pieces on the bench, the Kennen, the Morg, the Lulu, and the Twisted Fate. So at this point, let's say you found the Twisted Fate already, you have him in, he's at level 5, and you found Lulu. So you have those 2 units in. So the first thing you want to do, you know, at level 6 is, okay, now let me try to get the Sorcerer buff online. What do you break first? It's going to be the Nobles. The Knight buff is what you want to keep on the longest, all the way up to the late game. So we take out the Fiora first, and we add in the Morg. Now we have our 3 sorcerers online. What will be removed next? It's the Lucian. So for the Lucian, comes out, say you got the Kennen or the Poppy, that's great. We take out the Lucian. What's missing? We have 2 Yordles. A 3rd Yordle would be the best next unit that you can add to give you a little bit of beefiness. So once you get that 3rd Yordle, or once you get the elemental buff, which includes the Lysandra and the Brand, right? It's gonna take a little bit longer to find the Brand. That's when you can take off the Knight buff. So we can add in the great thing about the Yordle buff is it's in Poppy, which is also a Knight. So adding in the Poppy is very easy because you can just take out Darius, add in the Poppy, and you still retain the Knight buff. And then at this point is where you're starting to look for the elementals. And to find the Brand, you probably want to be at level 7 to increase your chances. So at level 7, this is finally where you can cut the last piece that you no longer need, add in the full 7-piece composition that we've been talking about. Now, as a quick side note, you do not want to replace your pieces from the early game until you've got your key pieces upgraded. So if you have your Lucian 2-starred, don't replace it until you have your Morg, Kennen, Poppy 2-starred as well. That's what I mean by collect your pieces on the bench, make them into a 2-star, and then replace the Lucian, the Fiora, the assassins that you are using in the early game. We're now going into the late game, and this is where we get to have some fun. So this build thrives because of the Morg and Kennen and what happens to be strong in the current meta, which is that pesky Void Brawler Assassin with the Rengar carry. Having the Morg and Kennen in here completely counters those assassin, and with a good positioning, it also beats rangers. So this is the positioning that you want to use against assassins, and for rangers, depending on which side they're on, right? It's going to be a little, sometimes when there's 8 people in the lobby, they're going to be left, right? But once you get to that top 3, top 4, if you can scout out where's the ranger, are they on this side, are they on this side, then you match them. Get that Kennen and Morg as close to them as possible, and it will look something like this against the Rangers to be able to beat them out. Now let's go into the late game units that you want to add in, which is going to be level 8, right? So we can add in one more unit, and also this is where you start replacing some weaker units. So late game units include Karthus, Aurelian Soul, and again, I'm talking about once you 2-star these, right? This is what I mean by late game. You're collecting these on the bench until you start 2-starring them. You're gonna have that 8th slot, so you can add in, you know, if you get the Aurelian Soul, sure, add it in, and then you're still collecting your other units upgrades until you get them 2-starred, and then you can start replacing them. So some great variations are using the Aurelian Soul, using the Karthus, using the Sejuani. This gives you the night buff back. Something else that's really good. And now keep in mind, the Morgana in the late game you can replace. So we can use the Aurelian Soul instead of the Morg. We can use the Karthus instead of the Aurelian Soul. And something that's really fun is you can use the Kindred, giving you Phantom buff, so looking something like this. And also let's not forget about the Kale, as again that gives us a night buff back online. So some of the late game pieces that work well in this comp are Aurelian Soul, Kindred, Sejuani, Karthus, Kale, and you can replace the Lysandra with Anivia if you find it. So basically you're just looking for your 5 cost pieces in the late game to replace, you know, the Morg and to add in that 8th slot. Now, I have decided not to include a VOD in this video because I do want to keep the video length shorter, but there is a VOD available on my Twitch page, twitch.tv/jinxjk. You can head on over there. I've made a highlight called the Keane build, so you can check that out. And honestly, I just want to say thank you for making it up to this point of the video. I try to get these videos out once a week to help you guys with your climb and just to keep you one step ahead of the meta. So I would love to see you, you know, smash that subscribe button on my YouTube. Go ahead, follow me on my Twitch page, and don't be a stranger. Come say hi. I do stream Monday through Friday. Until then, see you guys in the next video.